All right. Good evening. How are you, Satish? How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Sridhar.
All right.
Glad to be back on your pod.
Yeah, glad to be back in Connecticut. And I think the most important thing is like we were talking last night, and it was perfect timing because it's been a while since we did the Formula One podcast. And this has been one of the most wildest 2024 seasons you could ever see. I was doing some initial research. So I think we can get down to what you thought about the first half of the season and what to look forward to. I think that's how we're going to structure this podcast. But there are some interesting numbers I have that I will share. But I think I want to give you the floor to talk about your thoughts on the first half of the season.
Okay. Actually, even before first half, the way you put it was, this season has been like a real surprise. I don't think anybody was ready for what happened, right? So if you think back to 2023 for a minute, right, there were 22 something races. With the exception of, I think, Saudi and Singapore, Max won every race. So Red Bull and Max have had been dominant. If you look at their constructor championship points, if you look at Max's individual
Mhm.
championship points, they had more than twice the number of points of anybody that was even in the second place, right? So it was like complete dominance. McLaren, interestingly, finished behind Red Bull, Mercedes, and Ferrari. So they were number four. I say all of that because when you come to this season and the 14 races behind us, right, in up to the summer break, basically you've had six different drivers other than Max that have won races. Carlos Sainz has won a race. Lewis won two races. George Russell won a race. Charles won a race in Monaco. Oscar Piastri won a race. Lando Norris won a race. I mean, just this is a very different season, right? I mean, just people have, and Max, I think if you look at his championship points at this stage, he's like only 80 points, maybe even less than Lando Norris at this stage of the season, and Lando is number two. And Oscar Piastri, who was like number eight or something last season, is number four. So these guys, like I think the biggest like movement that has happened this year has been McLaren, and it's just been like they've come right up against Red Bull, and even Mercedes in the last six races has actually been scoring some points. If anything, Ferrari has kind of been like a little bit falling behind a little bit. So anyway, so far, 14 races, right? I would say Max is still doing very well. He's racing really good. He's the old Max. To me, the biggest difference has been cars. So last season, they had a significant advantage over every other team. McLaren did some very good work with their car in the off season. Mercedes also tried, but only in the last six races or so they have caught
Mhm.
up. So that to me is the biggest difference. But before we look forward, I thought, this is a worthwhile reflection because it's such a contrast.
Absolutely. In fact, I was looking at some of the stats. I think by this time last year, I think Max had already won 12. I think this time Red Bull has only won seven. Mercedes has three. Hamilton, in fact, has won two of the last three races to complete, and
Yeah.
three of the last four, Mercedes actually has won it. So this has been an interesting year for Mercedes, and it is good to see Hamilton win in Silverstone, um, and that was his home course, and that was
Uh,
good to see that. But and when you look at the team standings, I did forget about it. Ferrari and McLaren has two each. So far this year, Science won. I think was it? Did he win the Bahrain one? I think he won the
so Science won the Australian one.
Australian
Remember,
one.
he
Yeah,
just had his appendix surgery and he went
correct.
and beat
And
Max.
I think
Yeah.
yeah, he had like an 18-year-old kid actually sub for him when he was the
That's right.
appendix.
Oliver Bierman. Yep.
Exactly. So, end of the day, when you look at it, Max has still got enough points from a Red Bull standpoint. He's still on track to win his fourth straight title. But there are a couple of things that are going on in Red Bull. There was some outside of the track. You had the Horner investigation that was there. there are a lot of departures of some of the um, key guys there, Jonathan Wheatley. So I think it's been interesting for Red Bull, but they still continue to dominate the races. But let's see what happens. I think one of the things is that Perez has been struggling for Red Bull. So that's where we are right now. And then
Yeah.
I did want to spend a little more time. I mean, I just wanted to give you some points, at least from a team standpoint. Red Bull has 408, McLaren has 366, Ferrari has 345, Mercedes 266. Um, but let's see. I mean, I think it's right now. It's going to be Red Bull, or maybe I'm. Did I give Mercedes? Flip the Mercedes. Let me know later.
Mercedes is fourth. Yeah.
Mercedes is fourth, so
Yeah.
266. Okay, I was right. So that's been the biggest turnaround, more than the McLaren. I believe the Mercedes turnaround has been pretty important because, in spite of the fact that we know what's going to happen at the end of the year.
That's right. That's right. Well, lots of drama, right? As so you talked about it was a huge distraction, by the way, with Christian Horner's investigation. Max's dad got into it, and it was like so. I can just imagine what Red Bull was going through. And of course, on top of this, the other dynamic with Red Bull is Sergio Perez, right? Checo was number two when he finished last season, and Checo has just disappeared. I mean, he just. I know Red Bull has a lot of faith in him, but with McLaren trying to catch up, I mean, if Checo doesn't get his game together, not only would Red Bull lose the constructors, Checo will lose a seat. And it's he's in a serious hot soup right now. But then the other part, like you said, right, Lewis is going to go to Ferrari. He booted Carlos, and Carlos found a home with Williams. And so there's like a lot of movement happening behind the scenes. People are saying what will happen if Sergio gets booted at the end of the season from Red Bull. Who gets that seat, right? Would it be Yuki Tsunoda? Would it be Danny Ricciardo? Although he's not doing that great either, it's like there is a lot of moving parts. It's going to be very interesting. My point is there is more than just games that are going on. There is people's seats that are going to be in play before the season is over.
Yeah, and I think when you talked about Williams, I did want to talk about they were actually featured very prominently in the F1 series in the earlier
Yeah,
series.
yeah,
So Sainz actually going in there, and I didn't realize this. They only have 4 points in total, all scored by
yeah,
Albon, and
yeah.
and they've been very inconsistent. So um, it is a big boost for Carlos going in there, signing a multi-million dollar deal. I mean, and to partner with Alex Albon. So that's going to be very interesting from next year onward. So right now, looking at the season, what do you think is going to happen over the next few races? I think there are two races in the United States, one in Austin, one in
Yes.
Vegas, obviously. But this is the home stretch, and I'm so excited with the season coming in. Can Lewis Hamilton win more than
Yeah.
two this year?
Yeah.
Can Max take a step back? So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. So
Well, first of all, I expect Max to come back with a bang because the upcoming weekend Grand Prix is in his home turf. It's the Dutch Grand Prix.
right,
And I expect he's just going to smoke everybody out. Having said that, I will. Oh, actually, I should also say he's got like 80 points. So unless Max like tanks, which is very unusual, I don't see Max doing that. He's been consistent. It's just that others have caught up, right? So I think he's just. I think he's gonna get his championship. He may even get his championship before the season is over in Abu Dhabi, which
yep.
is the last one in early December. But in constructors championship, like I said, if Sergio doesn't, if Checo doesn't pick up his game, I think Lando and Oscar have been doing so well. Either they are getting podium points or they are getting top five, top 6 points. They are only like, I think, 40 points or something behind on Constructors' Championship, which is nothing. Like
Hmm?
3 races, you
Three
could beat them,
races,
kind of thing.
absolutely.
So I expect McLaren will have a really good shot. That leaves number three spot, which if Leclerc doesn't wake up, he had a great race in Monaco. That was his home turf. He got podium P1. But after that, he's kind of slipped and slid. If he doesn't pick up and Carlos doesn't pick up, like you said, Mercedes is really chomping at the bit. They could be number three. But if Charles and Carlos hold them off, then they'll go three and Mercedes number four.
Absolutely. I think to your point, you were saying before, you're right. It's about 80 points Verstappen has over Norris. But like I said, Ferrari is 3 and 5, and then Oscar is four, and then you got I think you got Hamilton at six. So I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, Max always wins Netherlands. He
Yeah.
always does that. There's no doubt about it. But but I think the most important thing, which is going to be interesting, is the team standings. That's the one which is so
Yep.
close, and that's what I'm very interested in. So can Red Bull and Max maintain it, or from a constructor championship, can the other teams actually
Yeah.
get over that? Because like you said, Red Bulls has got only one driver, while a lot of the
Yeah,
other
pretty
teams
much
do.
right. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
So
true.
the other teams do have like multiple drivers that can actually gain points for their team. So that's where I see it in terms of like, we still feel Max is the driver, but this has been the most amazing season in the sense of the amount of different drivers winning it. Max, I'm sure that this was a good break for him. I'm sure that he's going to bounce back, and I'm like you said, he must be chomping at his bits on getting
Yeah.
back on the track.
But I mean, I don't know if you think, but I'm sensing that this is like the pivotal season. Next season is going to really bring about some of the newer players. It's not going to be the usual Mercedes, Red Bull time. It's going to be McLaren. It's going to be Ferrari. You've got other teams that are slowly. Aston Martin is slowly starting to kind of get points here and there. It's a little bit disappointing to see Alonso not scoring as much as he did in the beginning part of the season. But I think there is a lot more parity in the paddock now than it was before.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you. So give me your predictions in terms of, and I'm sure that it's a long way out this season. There's still a lot of races there. Give me your predictions on who wins um, the overall, individual, and then the team.
Well, I think that to me, the individual I won't contest Max. The team I would say McLaren. I think McLaren's gonna do it because I don't see Sergio picking up.
Okay, I I am of the same view. I don't think anybody can beat Max um, because they do have McLaren does have a car for pretty much every circuit and all the conditions, and both the drivers are
True.
they're looking to exploit every opportunity. And I think, and that's one of the reasons. I mean, the one good thing about what happened last year for Red Bull was Max was winning pretty much everything, and they were so far ahead in terms of points that they didn't have to look back. But now they do have to look back. I think it'll be tough to beat. I think, like you said, it's substantial. But if Norris can find a way out, iron out some details, limit some mistakes, and that could definitely be a chance for Norris. But I I think I would like a new champion, but I think it's Max to the fore.
Yeah, this maybe next year.
Maybe next year. Maybe, I mean, you never know about Ferrari too. I mean, I'm not completely taking Ferrari out, but they'll have to work it out because I think Perez has to find some form, and I think he's been, not really good this year as well. So I think it's Max. We're both calling it Max, and we're both thinking that there is a chance for um, McLaren to take the lead.
So, I think the surprise could be that Piastri overtakes Charles and it becomes Max number one, Lando number two, and Oscar number
Oscar
three.
number two.
So I think McLaren will really show. I mean, remember all those Netflix series where Zach Brown used to get beaten up with McLaren all the time? I mean, now it's like going back to Ayrton Senna's days. McLaren is going to have a comeback, and I think they're going to have a couple of really good seasons.
Okay. All right.
So,
No, this is good though. I know we thought it was going to be 5-10 minutes, but I think we went up to almost 15 minutes. But I think
well,
there
we
was a lot
haven't
of good
caught up
talk.
in
I
a
think there
while.
was a lot of good discussion in terms of because this, like I said, I mean, usually by this time, halftime last year, we knew who was going to win it. But this time, it's wide open, makes every race more important. I do have a couple of coworkers who have been wearing Lewis Hamilton shirts
Yeah.
when they come to work after.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been very happy in
Yeah.
the last two out of the three. So let's see if that happens. So this was fun, Satish, and I'm sure that what is around the corner. Football is around the corner, so I'm
There
sure
you
that we'll
go.
get down to
We'll
football.
get
But
down
for
to it soon
now,
enough.
next week will be the Dutch Grand Prix, and then everything else follows: the Singapore, the U.S.,
Yep.
obviously
Austin and Vegas
Austin,
and
and then obviously the Italian Grand Prix. Let's see if Ferrari can,
Monza. Yep.
yeah, because let's see if Ferrari, like last year, if they can make a move onto the Ferrari in the Italian Grand Prix. So wide open, great season ahead, second season ahead for F1. So thank you again, Satish, and then hang on a
Thanks,
bit and
Sridhar.
while I hit the recording. Hold on. Thank you again. Good night.
Good night.